Mastering advice giving. A deep dive into modal verbs. Hello, language enthusiasts. Today, we're going to dive into an essential element of English grammar, modal verbs. But we're not just talking about any modal verbs. We'll specifically be focusing on the modal verbs used for advice. Understanding these will help you express recommendations more naturally and clearly. So, buckle up and get ready for this exciting journey. To kick things off, let's revisit the concept of modal verbs. Modal verbs are auxiliary verbs that express necessity, possibility, permission, or ability. They're essential in shaping the mood or tone of a sentence. Today, our focus is on how modal verbs can express advice. There are several modal verbs used for advice. The ones we'll focus on are should, ought to, had better, and could. Subsection 2.1. Should. Should is commonly used to give advice. It's the simplest and most straightforward way to make suggestions. For instance, you should drink more water. Subsection 2.2. Ought to. Ought to is very similar to should, and it's also used for advice. However, it's slightly more formal. For example, you ought to apologize for your mistake. Subsection 2.3. Had better. Had better is used to give advice about specific situations, especially when there's a sense of urgency or a warning. For instance, you had better study for the test tomorrow. Subsection 2.4. Could. Could is used for giving advice in a less direct or more polite way. For example, you could try to exercise more often. Understanding is one thing, but the real magic happens when we apply what we've learned. Let's see how these modal verbs can be used in advice-giving scenarios. You should always respect other people's beliefs. You ought to check the weather before going on a hike. You had better pay your bills on time to avoid penalties. You could make a schedule to manage your time better. And there you have it, folks. Now you're equipped with the tools to give advice in English more effectively and naturally. Always remember, practice makes perfect. So try using these modal verbs in your everyday English conversations. Thank you for joining me on this grammar adventure. I hope you found it enlightening and useful. Happy learning, and see you in our next video.